I don't know if I'm in love with him having to start week 1, but I don't know if I'd say that about any of these guys that weren't named, that I really didn't like Stingley very much, but if it wasn't Sauce, I wasn't comfortable with any of these guys starting week 1, but I guess that's kind of where you are.
And let's be honest, that's not McDermott's style anyway, right?
Yeah,
like we wouldn't expect any pick to start week 1 because that's just not McDermott's style. And you feel like if he does start week 1, that's a huge, saying something huge about the player we picked up. Not necessarily saying that. What I'm trying to say is, if Booth starts week 1, he earned it. He earned it. So, I'm not saying he's a week 1 starter, but at the same time, if he earns it, I'm not worried about that either. You look at the Bills' history, and McDermott's gonna make him earn it if he gets it. And I'm excited. I really am. I think this is. I mean, obviously, everyone wanted a cornerback, and that's what we go after, and that's what we get. And again, the only disappointment is that it was New England and Kansas City that forced us to lose an extra pick that maybe we didn't have to. But you have to feel like how quick it happened too. You have to feel like Bean was expecting something to happen to move up. Like that was quick. Not only was the trade quick, but then the pick right after was pretty quick as well. I mean, I'm sure.
A lot of these picks, for television purposes, they're normally 3 picks behind, right? So typically speaking, the picks are already in and done. So for television, Booth is known he's been the player for a little bit now. So things often have a tendency to move quickly. But really, when you look at the way the draft was shaking out, if you take a look, you had at 17, the Chargers took Zion Johnson. Really,
wait, Paul. I have to interrupt you. I don't know where you saw that they got Booth, but they actually got Elam.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh no, I saw that they had taken Booth.
I don't know where you saw it.
No.
But yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I have my phone right here.
Look at that. You are absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, of course I'm right, Paul. Don't worry. All right. So let's revert back to the original. I'm actually a little more upset about this now.
Really? See, I like Elam better.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I like Elam better.
See, I like Booth better. I thought Booth had better closing speed. I thought Booth had just speed was better.
He's one of the worst tackling corners in the draft.
Right.
He's terrible. Booth is terrible. He's a terrible tackler. Terrible tackler.
And listen, I know that a lot of mocks has getting Elam as well because Booth was already gone at some of these mocks. 6'2", 191 out of Florida. He ran a 4.4, so he's not slow either. But
I think the difference here is that Elam is probably a better, don't get me wrong, right? Booth can fit in almost any NFL system, but Elam is a press zone guy. That is what he is going to do. He's going to excel in a zone-based system. So I think he's a little bit more plug and play than a player like Booth would be, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm actually really thrilled with Elam because he answers to me closer to somebody that you're going to ask to start. He fits the scheme a little bit closer than Booth did. So, don't get me wrong. I like 6'2" a little better than I like 6 foot, right? I like 6'2" a little bit better. I'm not going to
about 2 inches better. About that much better.
About that much better. Yeah. But I think one of the things that is going to be very interesting to see is Elam has a tendency to be really aggressive, right? So if I have to knock on him, he gets a little grabby. And sometimes in college, when you get corners that are a little grabby, it's usually because they're trying to cover for something, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to cover for speed or slow hips. Elam's got all the tools. He can run with anybody. He's got the feet to go with anybody. But he's a little aggressive. But again, you put a press zone corner in the NFL, and aggressive is okay. You're going to get away with a lot in the NFL. And I'm actually really okay here.
I'm okay. We got our corner, right? So that was the big. Obviously, the way the draft board worked itself out, if we did not get a corner, there was something really wrong. There was something really wrong. Mm-hmm. But we got the corner that apparently we wanted, right? And so, so It is what it is.
So
I'm not as excited about it as you are, but again, I'm excited about the fact. I mean, and overall, I am a huge guy. I've trusted in Brandon Bean. I felt that way last year when we picked up 2 edges in the first 2 rounds, and everyone's going nuts. He was a pre-draft visit. He was one of their top 30 visits. So
yep.
obviously, the Bills see something in him that they like, and if the Bills see something, they know a little bit more about football than I do, more than 2 inches worth.
Well, downside, he's only got 8-inch hands. So,
Okay.
For a corner, Joe, come on, that doesn't matter. Just throwing that out there. So, but when you start breaking down Elam, he's an odd look because there are times where he is physically really dominant, and there's times where he pulls himself out of plays, right? So he's top speed. He's top speed 100% of the way. He does sometimes run into a little bit of an issue slowing the game down, right? When he's got opportunities, he does have a tendency to overrun a little bit.
Right.
I think the difference is that in the NFL, the speed of the game is so much faster that I'm not really super concerned about that.
Right.
He's not an interception machine, but I don't think
Right.
you're asking him to be one, right? Like this is a team that in the playoffs started a seventh round draft pick, like you're not asked to be an interception machine here. You got to play a role. You got to
Right.
stay within your lane. And he's played a lot of zone reps. So while people might not love the pick, I'm going to go with Shivas on this one. Shivas Gold says, trust the process. And I am 100% with him. There's going to be other corners who people might say they liked better, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Rick Rarick says, I was a little surprised at the trade up there. I'm not. I don't think they could afford to let another corner go off the board. And I think this probably speaks a little bit more. The fact that they traded up, they looked at the difference between Elam and Booth as a lot bigger than 2 picks.
Right. Because you're pretty confident that's not going corner before your pick, right? I mean, look at the teams ahead of you, their draft needs. It's not going corner. So if you feel like Kair and Booth are even, then you don't make this trade at all. You say, okay, we'll take the next guy. I do want to say that Pimarutu, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I apologize, but thank you for the super chat, $5. Damn, he is the one guy I did not like. Florida is a bust factory.
Ooh.
You look at Florida players in the past. Obviously, he's not happy. I'm still, and I am not a proponent of saying that previous failures or successes will dictate how players are going to do in the NFL. I think each player has their own path, and you look at the coaching staff and everything in Buffalo. I think Buffalo will look at, you talk about Florida players, you talk about some problems that they had in the past, right? Aaron Hernandez comes to mind immediately, of course. The Buffalo Bills will sniff that out. They're a no nonsense type group.
Right.
Of course, so is Bill Belichick, right? So, but anyway.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Bill.
But anyways, my big concern, the way the draft board was falling, my big concern, like I said, was we had to get cornerback or trade down. Like those were my 2 options. I did not want to see us getting Breach Hall. I think I've made clear my thought of value at running back in the first round.
I like Breece Hall at 32. I like
Breece Hall at right. I like Breece Hall later.
I don't like Breece Hall. I'm with you. I don't like Breece Hall at 25, but I like Breece Hall at 32, 37, 41. I'm very okay there.
And the Bills still have the draft capital, and the Bills still have a good enough roster to trade up again. There's no reason to think that they don't.
And I love that point, Joe. You're absolutely right. So one of the things that Buffalo doesn't have is a lot of roster spots. Like this team is ready to go. They are ready to go. This was the hole you have to fill. And I would not be shocked to see them walk away with another player. When you get really deep on a player like Sauce Gardner, you're going to spend time on Kobe Bryant because Kobe Bryant was the corner opposite Sauce Gardner, and he's going to be there in the 5th or the 6th. Like those are things that you walk away from. They're going to walk away with another corner here sooner or later. But I understand people's apprehensions about drafting a corner from Florida, right? One, you can't knock the division, right? Like that's one hell of a conference. They play some really solid teams. But the Elam pick is fascinating to me because Buffalo normally loves those multi-year starters. And Elam was a starter in 2020 and a starter in 2021, but not a starter in 2019. He only played 310 snaps in 2019. So listen, people are going to be frustrated with this pick because it's a guy that maybe people don't understand the trade up for. To Buffalo, there was a reason for it, right? The difference between this is they definitively drew a line in the sand between Elam and Booth by saying, we're just going to go get Elam.
Right.
We just like him that much more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, if that's how the Bills feel, then I'm for it 100%. And and now what you have to be ready for though, and maybe this went into the thought of the pick too. He's immediate as soon as Trey Wright comes back, Kerr's immediately the target, right? For quarterbacks. Like he's immediately the guy that they're going to go after until he proves that he could be that good of a corner. So, you still have some good slot corners for Buffalo that are going to be there. I mean, you look at some of the guys who came in last year after Trey Wright went out, and they still played really well. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where he fits, where Elam fits. But I think I trust Leslie Frazier, Coach McDermott, and Brendan Bean to figure that out.
Well, I mean, this is the thing that they do, right? They develop corners, and just to kind of walk through a little bit of Elam's production in college. So in the last 3 years, he's given up 5 touchdowns, which I know that's not a big number at all, right? In the college football game, these guys score 50 points a game, right? So only giving up 5 touchdowns that's not bad. Only 3 interceptions the last 2 seasons. Again, he's not a ball hawk. It's just not what's going to happen. But last season did only give up 191 yards on 19 receptions off 36 targets. So again, that's fine production. Now, a lot of people will say that doesn't sound like first round production, and I understand why you say that. But there's some times on film where Elam does look like a top 3 corner in this draft.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah,
but there's also times where you see him get flagged 10 times in the last 7 games of the season, and you're like, what the hell? Like needlessly flagged, like out of the play, needlessly flagged. So it's a mixed bag. And the one thing that I don't think Buffalo could do was take a timid player when this guy's going to start.
Yeah.
They haven't signed anybody. He's going to start. So you got to do what you got to do.
But
and this is what you got to do.
You talk about penalties, and let's be honest about it. The Buffalo Bills have had past few seasons, although they seem to clean it up towards the end of last year, haven't been the most disciplined team when it comes to penalties. That's been something they've struggled with. So, you talk about here, Elam, and the trouble with penalties. Are we going to be able to clean that up? Because that's going to need to be cleaned up. Because the last thing we need in the playoffs is behind the play a Cody Ford type penalty in overtime, right? Where it's
don't you say that name around
bad memories. But like that's the last thing we need, right? And so if he already has a reputation for being flagged in college, that's something that NFL officials are going to know, and they're going to look in on that.
Right. Yeah, and I'm with you there. Now, as far as something that this team has kind of lacked a little bit, speed, and he brings it. He's sub 4.4, and the 40 was what he put up at, I believe it was the combine. I don't think it was at his pro day. And listen, this team has lacked speed in the secondary. They just have, like Eli Wallace weighed $165 and he wasn't all that fast. Dane Jackson certainly isn't a burner. Trey's quick, but Trey's not fast. Right. So now you're adding speed, and I think there's something to be said for that. And that's okay. That and you're walking into weeks 1 through 5, probably 1 through 5, 1 through 6 are going to be Elam, and opposite that, Dane Jackson, unless they sign a veteran, which they still very well could do.
I'm actually surprised they didn't earlier this week, to be honest with you. I thought this week I thought they would.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I was 100% confident that they were going to sign somebody. I was like, I didn't even think it was a concern. I was like, no, they'll sign somebody.
Yeah, and they still can, like you said, they still can. But I thought for sure they were.
But prototypical size, like if you're looking for what the new corners look like in the NFL, they make them in a mold. They look like Kaiir Elam. 6'2", $190, runs like a deer, is physical at the line. Like this is what they want. This is the new style corner. So I don't think you're necessarily drafting production here. I think you're drafting moldable talent, right?
Mhm.
And you're drafting a guy who's in the SEC, so he's going against the best competition in the country.
Right.
Like,
Right. And
truthfully speaking, this is as safe a bet as it gets. Like this is a
I
pretty
hope
safe
so.
bet.
I hope so. And I was gonna say that too. Like you look at the wide receivers that were taken, he went up against 4 of them. like out of what 6, 7 wide receivers that were taken ahead of us, he went up against 4 of them every both years. Like so, so that says something about the competition he was playing. Now he did get burned by a few of them, but that's going to happen, especially if you're a rookie now going into the NFL. Like. Yeah, and that's why I was just reading a little bit more about his comp on NFL.com. They actually say that early on he's going to be a number 3 and then eventually play into a number 2 spot, and that's possible as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Brad, but I think that for the first 4 or 5 weeks, Leslie Frazier and Coach McDermott will have a game plan to go in knowing that they don't have Trey White. So
very much agree. Very much.
Now,
agree.
now I have a question for you, Paul. I not sure about this. Does he have any special teams abilities?
Ooh.
Right, like that'd be
I
a
don't
huge
think
factor.
I don't think he played special teams in 2020 or 2021. I think he did in 2019.
Okay.
But you're not drafting a first-round player.
No, you're not. You're not at all.
Right.
But if that adds something,
I understand that. Yeah, I understand.
If he has a little bit of that over Booth or some of these other corners, that might be a tipping point and saying, yeah, that's why I want this guy instead of the other guy.
But Buffalo, again, proving that youth is a big deal, right? Because this is a kid that he was a freshman in 2019, which means he was a junior. So, again, 2-year starter, 3-year eligible. So Buffalo has proven that in these early rounds, youth, they want them as young as they can get them. And that's been a huge tendency for Buffalo, that if you're a junior, let's go. If you're a senior, you better have been a 4-year starter, right? Like that's sort of the way that it seems to work out once you start dragging through the rest of the draft. Listen, if you're a senior, you better have been a 4-year starter. If you're a junior, 2 years is fine, right?
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this chat, and the one thing that quickly I'm getting over is the fact that we give up a 4th-round pick. Like I'm getting over that fact. Like whatever. The 4th-round pick. I understand that Brandon Beane normally does great on the. I love day 3 of the NFL draft because I feel like Brandon Beane has done a great job. But he's given up picks to get what he wants. Isn't that what you want out of a GM? Like you want a GM who's not afraid to go after. Like he knows what the draft picks are worth, and he's not going to overextend. We've seen that multiple times with Brandon Beane. But he also knows what he wants, and he's going to go up and get what he wants at the same time. And that's what we want. Aggressive yet smart. We're not playing the Rams game here of saying, hey, we don't have a 1st-round pick till 2025. We're not doing that. We're as close to all in on this season as we can be without giving up our future.
Right.
We're not looking for a Super Bowl this season. We're looking for a Super Bowl this season and for like next 4 to come. And that's a great spot to be in. And
absolutely.
Mario talked about last Friday when we did the mock drafts. He was like, if you get a cornerback in the 1st round, is the rest of the draft pretty much whatever he called. I forget exactly what he said.
Is it a wash?
Is it a wash? Right. Yeah. Is it a wash at that point? Now I don't know if my argument would have been, they didn't let me speak though, because whatever. But my argument would have been there's no such thing as a wash in the NFL draft. But at the same, this is as close to a wash as you can get, because like you said earlier, we don't have that many draft picks, or we don't have that many roster spots available.
Right.
So we don't need to.
And I think we can get Mario to defend his spot, because guess who's here?
Mario my God!
Look at that. There he is. What's up, Mario? I'm so sorry. I didn't even know you were here until Mario put in, I'm having trouble getting.
Are you ignoring me, boys? I thought I saw that too, and I was like, who's put that? But yeah, I was ignoring you for a while, Mario. No.
Hashtag Nation, Joe, Paul, how you guys doing? Tell me if you guys ever heard this before. Brandon Beane picking a cornerback in the 20s, which is the 4th cornerback taken off the board.
That's what I mean.
Let me know if you've heard that. Let me know if you've also heard this. Trading up with Baltimore to take the most physically athletic young player at the position. Tremaine Edmonds, anybody?
But again, Joe and I were just talking about them. So glad you brought that up, because Elam versus Booth, 2 totally different animals, right? Booth from Clemson, everybody was mocking to Buffalo, just because of necessity. And while Booth can go anywhere in the NFL, Elam's just a different animal in that respect. right? Like, you know who Elam reminds me of? He reminds me of just a bigger Darqueze Dennard. I remember Darqueze Dennard coming out of college was so aggressive. I just loved it, right? I loved it. Didn't work out in the NFL for him, right? But Elam is that prototypical size. And if you're Brandon Beane, what do? You bet on the freak athlete, right? You bet on the freak athlete. And this is what a freak athlete at corner looks like.
So a couple things real quick, and I know we're mostly talking about the Bills pick here, but this affects the Bills as well. Tyler Linderbaum, a guy I loved in this draft, went to the Ravens. You talk about getting help from Lamar Jackson, and the Jets just traded up for their third first-round pick. But it's the Jets, so I'm not worried about whoever they take, other than the fact he's not going to play well. I feel bad.
Right. I don't know, guys, but with the I dropped in on Ryan, who's at Jets Talk 24/7 the other day. He threw a grenade into his chat the other day, having a lot of fun. I mean, they got Sauce. I mean, they got who's their second pick now? They got Sauce.
They drafted a wide receiver,
Wilson. Yeah, and with the talks that they might have traded that 10th round pick for Samuel, you knew they were going to go wide receiver there, and then they come back in. They we have to caution a lot of those NFL teams, and we have to say stuff. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, the Buffalo Bills are having trouble. They took Allen and Edmonds, and people are wondering if Edmonds is still going to be on this team. 2 first-round picks that happen to pan out. If the Jets have 3 draft picks in the first round, we've seen the dumpster fire of the Cleveland Browns that have 3 first.
That didn't work out, right? When you take all those first-round picks, at some point you got to pay some of them, right?
Exactly.
That doesn't work out.
So I mean, the Jets did shore up a lot of things that they have. I like their first 2 picks that they have. We're going to see what they go now. If they, the fact that they had a lot of these guys graded as high as they did to hop back into the first round, I'm very curious to see what that is. But how many of these insane trades are we going to see with receivers going to teams? Hollywood Brown had 1 year. He's on a contract year, for crying out loud.
Oh, they extended him.
Oh, they ended up. Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to extend him.
They're building an extension as part of that.
It is just ridiculous what these guys are doing, and
thanks a lot, Christian Kirk. Thanks a lot.
You definitely knew though that I didn't really know specifically which corner it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be a corner at this pick. And Paul lost a bet, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you guys know that, hashtag Nation. Paul just recently lost a bet with the corner taken in the first round.
Yeah, sure did. Hey, it's all right. It's all right. But Tim Ellington brought up a great point. And, you look at the Jets bring in a wide receiver, and Lord knows what else with this pick.
Jermaine Johnson.
Okay. Tyreek Hill is now within the division. You look at the Chiefs, and Chiefs go, listen, we need a corner, so let's take who we think is the best corner. Let's jump Buffalo. And then Buffalo says, well, we still need a corner. Who's going to survive? Right? This isn't the easiest division in football. Like, these teams at the wide receiver position, they're all, with exception to the Patriots, the Jets can move. Miami can move. Like, you could lose football games to them easily if your secondary is not up to par, especially if you get 2 of those division games early in the season. Like, we don't know what the schedule looks like yet, but if you're without Trey for those divisional games, that's going to bite you in the ass come November.
Yeah, and I think you guys probably brought it up earlier, and I think it's safe to mention, why, because people are going to talk, especially Bills fans are going to talk, why the Bills just go up 2 spots. Well, as atrocious as that defense was in Dallas, they were going to try to get somebody across from Diggs, and they could have been targeting Elam. You know what I mean? That could have been Beane's worry and be like, hey, listen, I'll throw you a 4th. Just let me skip Dallas because I don't want to take the 5th corner off the board. I want to take the 4th corner off the board. As Paul said, Booth can pretty much play in any defense, but Elam, specifically with McDermott and Frazier, like, if you go, there's no better place to go. It's like a quarterback going to Andy Reid. You know what I mean? Like, a corner coming to McDermott and Frazier is like one of the best fits that you can get for a kid. And he's so young too. I mean, he turns, what does he turn, 21 next week?
Yeah.
So
but we know Buffalo's MO, right? They want them young. They want
those young athletic freaks, man.
So let's see here. Trey White returning from injury. So it's weird right now, right? Because the team doesn't have to give any updates, right? Like, it's not like during the season where they have, you know, they have to reveal that info. Remember, best case scenario is a 9-month recovery. He has an ACL tear. So right now we just know Trey White's on schedule. So that's all we know. And unfortunately, 9 months from as deep in the season as it was, you know, you're looking at what he got injured at the end of November. So you conservatively say 10 months for a return, October-ish, like maybe, like, and that's
November
ahead of
25th.
schedule. Yeah, it's ahead of schedule. So for those of you who are keeping track of Trey's return, realistically, 9 to 12 months from surgery. Trey had surgery not long after. So we're probably looking at October-ish. I think that's probably the safest bet. That seems not gonna just throw him back out there unless he's ready.
You know? Yeah, and especially with the progression of Elam, you're saying playing across from Dane Jackson, you still got Teron in the slot. Plus, the Buffalo Bills have something that will eventually help a young cornerback, which the two-headed monster in the back end, plus adding Von Miller. You know that there's going to be opportunities for this kid to make plays on errant throws and certain things where the quarterback is just rushed a little bit more than he wants to be. So that all being said, he does have to get coached up a little bit. I mean, a lot of people were talking about that. You know, he has great athletic, physical skills. However, there are certain times when he happens to just, you know, get extended a little too much with those long arms. So he's McChicken already in here. Get ridiculous.
But I think you bring up a great point, right? So if we look at what do you do when you have a questionable secondary, not to call the Bills secondary questionable, like the cornerback position obviously is a question mark, but not questionable at this point. You still have Hyde and Poirier, you still have incumbent linebackers, like you're returning an incumbent defense. But if you got to cover up for that cornerback position, that's why moves like bringing back Jordan Phillips, bringing in DeQuan Jones, going to get Von Miller, having Rousseau and Basham, that young aggressive nature against opposing offenses. That's normally what teams do to cover up questionable secondaries. And again, I don't mean to call Buffalo's secondary questionable. I'm just saying you're not settled there. So you got to do something, right? So is that maybe why Buffalo was so aggressive against, with the defensive line acquisitions during the offseason? Because they said, listen, corner, let's get younger at corner. Let's not sign anybody. We think we can get somebody in the draft. So let's just pause on that. But we can get these guys right now and help that pass rush.
Paul, you just made an excellent point, and you didn't even know you made it.
Thanks.
I'm just giving Paul a taste of his own medicine here. What is the common thing? You happen to say that to me all the time. What is the one thing that we harp on about this defense, a Leslie Frazier defense in Buffalo, with so many incumbent starters that you played for so many games together? You got to mix things up. Yep. You got to try to change how your defense plays and how your defense rolls when you come into there. Now, you mentioned guys, first rounder in Rousseau, Von Miller. Now you have essentially when Trey goes back 2 first-round corners, Tremaine Edmonds. You got the safety tandem in Hyde and Boyer. You are now opening yourself up with all of these athletes that you have on the defensive side of the ball to be as versatile as you want any time of the day. You could bring Elam down to play play man coverage on the tight ends now, and that frees up Trey White when he comes out. You got Dane Jackson who can play. Will Dane Jackson be the number one with Trey out, or will Elam be the number one? You don't know how this defense is going to end up playing in 2022 because they have so much versatility now, adding all of that beef up front, getting all those guys in there, and then having the ability to, say, okay, we shored ourselves up in free agency now. Now we have to get a first-round corner opposite Trey White. And they do what they always do. They stagger the contracts. They had White, then they extended him. Now they're going to be staggering those deals. If they want to sign Dane Jackson, they can re-sign Dane Jackson. Then when they have to re-sign Elam, you have your first-round corner. You could, I'm not saying immediately, you could walk away from Trey White if his asking price happens to be a little bit too high. So that is what Bean is doing essentially. He's not handicapping himself and handcuffing himself like the Saints would, or like the Falcons would, or the Eagles or whatever, those one and done teams. He wants to have sustainable success with this team, and any coordinator that may come in, because Paul, we've been saying for 3 years that Leslie Frazier should be a head coach somewhere. Any coordinator that comes in would be able to work with all of these freak athletes and do something with them.
Mm-hmm.
So PFF, for everything they do wrong, they do something that is at least mildly entertaining. And the comparable for Kyle Elam is Eric Rowe, who Mario just has the softest spot in his heart for. He just, wherever Eric Rowe goes, Mario just loves it. I don't know why, but he does love himself some
the
Eric
guy that
Rowe.
got converted to a safety in Miami.
Yeah.
Oh God,
yeah,
poor Eric Rowe.
True. That's true. So Joe, when we look at where to go from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm.
do you see Buffalo, because there's still needs, right? Buffalo is, admittedly, they're thin at wide receiver still. I'm just going to say they are, right? Because you're lacking a little bit of depth at wide receiver. Obviously, you weren't going to get that in the first round of this draft where Buffalo was, right? Without incredibly overpaying for it. But where do you go from here? Are you fine to sit where they are in the second round and, again, let the draft come to you? Can they afford to do that? Do you see them being aggressive in the second round? What do you think they do? Like, where do you go from here? Because, one, I don't think they're done with cornerback. I don't think they'll go back to back, but I think they're done. I don't think they're done with corner in this draft. So where do you go? What do you do now?
Well, and again, it all depends how the board plays out, right? Like we still have some really good cornerbacks on this board. The first guy that comes to mind is McCurry from Auburn. If for some reason he slips, he's ours, right? Like we're going to take him. We go back to back. But I look at the wide receiver position and there's no reason. And I think we proved this with our current wide receiving core, minus Stephon Diggs with Gabe Davis, of course. There's no reason to trade up for wide receiver, right? This draft class is, your top 5 or 6 are your top 5 or 6, right? They're your studs. But after that, there's a whole bunch of guys go 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round that are pretty much the same as far as where you grade them. So I'm not worried about wide receiver. So now you look at inside offensive line, maybe running back. The only guy I could really see the Bills trading up for in the second round would be Breece Hall. If he drops to a certain point, I don't see the Bills because we've seen both this year and in years past how much Brandon Beane values these picks, and I think he actually grades picks a little bit harsher than some other GMs do. I don't see the Bills trading up far in the second round. At most 10 picks maybe, and that really depends who falls. But I like this, let the board come to you kind of approach. Again, we talked earlier, the Bills do have draft capital move up if they want to, and they have limited roster spots still available. So they have that to play with, but it's a great position to be in. Listen, if you have 95 to 110 guys coming into camp, that's a good position to be in when they're all studs and you can use any single one of them and they'll fill a lot of 53-man rosters. And looking into that, hasn't Brandon Beane done a good job trading guys he was going to drop anyway for 6th, 7th round picks?
Yeah.
So that's something to look into too.
Daniel Ventura brings up a great point. He said that Beane was quoted as saying, in reference to the Elam pick, that he was the last first-round player they had on their board. And that's really fascinating to me. And Mario, walk with me on this adventure quickly, right? We know that most NFL teams have 17 to 18 players graded as first-round picks.
True.
That means that only 5 players taken were not graded as first-round picks ahead of them. And that actually is not a weird number, right? Your list of first-round picks are not always reflective of, like, Buffalo will not have any quarterbacks on there. Right? Like there's no reason to include them.
The draft usually makes it easier for us because 1 or 2 quarterbacks are taken. So you're like, hey, the Bills didn't need that. That's great. That pushes guys down. No guys got pushed down here.
But what it does tell you is that Buffalo had a lot of wide receivers rated as first-round players. A lot. Because there were a lot of wide receivers taken in this draft. And to only have a 5-player differential between where your board probably ended versus where you picked, it's only 4 or 5 players, man. And I guarantee you got quarterback. That's 1, right? There's probably only 2 to 3 other players in between where you picked and where your first round grades ended, which means Buffalo was hot on wide receivers this draft. They had to be.
Yeah. I mean, but if you look at, let's just say we take the number 18 though, Paul, we take it. 18th was Tennessee traded up for that pick.
Yeah.
the Saints at 19 traded for that pick. The Steelers were not moving from 20 with no quarterbacks.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They were not moving from that. Green Bay moved around at 22. They ended up getting a linebacker, Quay Walker. I mean, if the Bills traded up and gotten Nakobe Dean, I don't know what was going to be happening at one Bills drive right now. It would have been. I know one guy in particular, and I'm talking to him right now. Paul would have loved to have a linebacker on this team.
Oh, no doubt.
But with the amount that the Buffalo Bills play nickel and how much they're going to have to play nickel coming up with all of these studs coming into the division and in the AFC, that's going to be their base. Let's just talk about that. But because they won't need to go 4 or 5 deep at linebacker. They're going to load up heavily in the secondary, and they're going to do a lot of different things. Remember, they still got Johnson and Hamlin in tow if anything happens with Hyde and Poyer. And I understand. I'm just talking, to everybody. No one's going to replace Hyde and Poyer right now. Still best safety tandem. However, Poyer happens to see what's going on. That's why there's all this buzz going around around Poyer. He just saw all this money go to all these free agents coming in, and he sees what's ahead with Edmonds and Oliver. So he's like, I got to get paid now, guys. That's why all that noise is going on right now. But to get it back on the field, there's so much versatility now for the Buffalo Bills. And what I said the other day, Joe, was they're playing with house money. Like if they get a corner in the first round, they're going to be playing with house money. And I hope this does not echo the Diggs draft where it just seems like they were just like, okay, we're going to take this guy. We're going to take this guy. We're going to take this guy. You know what I mean? They have a lot of developmental projects that are still on this team that we don't even know about yet. I mean, who knows about Isaiah Hodgins? I mean, Isaiah Hodgins could have been in this draft. Could have been one of those wide receivers that are in this draft. We just don't even know about it because he hasn't played at all.
So I saw in the chat somebody asked about the safety from Penn State. That's Jaquan Brisker. Gonna be honest with you, I don't think he's gonna stick around unless Buffalo moves for him. Right? Safety at 6'2", man, and he's about as good a safety as you're gonna find. Unless Buffalo moves for him, I don't think you're snatching him. But I will say that the value to Poyer on this team versus off, Jordan Poyer knows that on the free agent market, his best chance for money is to stay in Buffalo.
Right.
Because that's just the truth. Is his best chance to get paid, it remains in Buffalo.
I mean, I think you look at the safety tandem overall in Buffalo, I think they play better together.
Absolutely.
And I think most teams in the NFL look at that and realize that. You look at their careers before they were together, and Hyde was pretty good, but Poyer really hadn't made a name for himself yet. And you got these two together in Buffalo, and all of a sudden they became the best tandem in the NFL.
Well, with that being said, a player like Brisker, he played a vast majority of the last season in the box, which is where you saw Poyer anyway, right? So from a scheme fit, he definitely is a scheme fit. But, I know people say, well, just trade Tremaine. You're not going to re-sign him anyway. Or trade Poyer. He's causing too much of a problem. Listen, this is what this winning football teams have players that want to stay, but also get paid. Like this is the problem with winning football teams. Players don't want to go, but they also want to get paid. This is what happens. Sometimes you have to part ways with good players because the money isn't right. But the fact of the matter is these guys don't want to leave. They really don't. They want to get paid. They really don't want to leave because nothing kills your career more than losing.
Right.
When you're 30. When you're 30, losing's bad.
Yeah, something that's obviously, I mean, it is foreign to Buffalo because for so long, I mean, it's been that way. So, but Paul, I swear to God, you were just I thought you were gonna pull a quote out of Any Given Sunday when Cameron Diaz is talking to the trainer. He goes, "Hey, let him go. Everyone's seen him take the hits. I mean, everyone has seen Poyer for the last 4 years just throw his body around like a torpedo."
Yep.
And you know what? And you're gonna get, people don't realize this. You're not getting paid for the services that you've already given to the team. You're gonna get paid for what you can produce in the future. That's what these deals are.
Right.
So
absolutely, I mean,
true. At least the Bills are having a better night than Aaron Rodgers. I swear to God.
Oh my God.
They just took Devontae Wyatt.
That poor guy. I
don't
feel bad for him at all. I don't.
Two first-round picks.
Yeah, but
first-round picks in my defense.
I don't care at all. It's for what he did to that organization. He can suffer.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
It's so
amazing. I agree. I agree with you, Paul. I agree with you, Paul, completely. But
so amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So we don't have to worry about seeing them in the Super Bowl.
I do want to point out that once we are done with this episode, because we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly, our Patreon members, we're going to post a link for that. All our Patreon members, we're going to have a call with you guys. So come join us. It'll just be our Patreon members. Again, if you're curious about what our Patreon is, the link is in the description. We're going to have just a Patreon call for those members. That we're going to post a link in on the Patreon board. So all those members will be able to see that. So final thoughts, kind of looking at where we are, what's going to happen. Joe, we'll start with you.
Sure.
Give me a little bit of a rundown of where are you happy with this pick? Are you surprised by this pick? Like, tell me where you are.
Well, I'm not surprised by this pick. The way the board played out, cornerback was the only way to go. That's it. I just saw Matt Perino tweeted that the Bryce Hall or the Breach, whatever you say, yeah, Paul. But anyhow, the Brandon Beancountant said that those rumors weren't from One Bills Drive. He has no idea where those rumors came from. So I believe him with that, Breece Hall. I believe Brandon Bean that I don't know why the Bills are going back in the first round. I could see the Bills going running back in this draft, but I don't see it being the first. And to be honest, I don't see it being in the second, unless Breece Hall falls to them.
I don't see any way he falls that far.
No, me neither. I feel like a running back needy team will trade up higher than they should to get a running back early in the second round. And I'm okay with that as long as it's not the Bills. But for the rest of this draft, again, maybe Mario's right. We have a little bit of house money here, but still you have to do your due diligence. I would not be surprised. In fact, I would be surprised if there wasn't another trade up at some point, whether it be tomorrow or Saturday. I'm not sure. But trade up, get the guys you need to get, because this roster is already set. This roster is set to be a Super Bowl winning team. We just need to make sure we have the right depth and make sure we get the players of need at this point. We have positions that still need fill in our offensive line. I think so. I love the trenches in our offensive line. I could see us going wide receiver. Like I said, a lot of good slot wide receivers out there, and that's kind of what we need. But it's not a need because we have Crowder. So there's so many positions that we say are of need, but then you look at it, it's like it's a need, especially when you look at 2023. But if we don't get it, we don't need to overstretch for any of these players, and that is a great position to be in.
Right. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Mar, final thoughts.
I would just like to point out that I'm going to be asking Paul for the lottery numbers, because right around pick 12, I had a phone conversation with Paul, and he goes, listen, the going rate now, if the Bills want to trade up into the teens from where they are, is going to be their first round pick and a third. And they moved up 2 spots, and it cost a 4th rounder. So Paul, you're going to have to tell me, what the lottery numbers are tomorrow, because you're just a different animal when it comes to the draft and how the market gets set early in the draft for certain players. And when teams trade out, like every draft is different. Teams sometimes will have execute drafts before the draft even happens, like days before, but then that new market gets set right at the draft. So Paul, I'm gonna need those numbers, number 1. Number 2, I want to thank all the hashtag members, and also if you guys, all the members of Hashtag Nation 78 that are watching right now, number 1, hit the like button. Number 2, if you guys go down and follow Mr. Rogers Holmes, Sean Rogers, who is the title sponsor for the show, and you take a screenshot of it, you following him, you are going to get a Hashtag Sports bracelet, and you'll be entered in a drawing to win a Buffalo Bills jersey. So make sure you do that before you go to bed tonight and celebrate the Elam pick, because I don't know. I don't think the Bills are trading back up again in the first round. I just don't think they're going to do that.
I don't see it either. See it either. But second round, I think, is a totally different animal. Again, we mentioned 100%. It early on the stream, and I really do stick by the fact that Buffalo has more draft picks than they have roster spots, right? So
yes.
What are you doing holding on to these picks, right? Just go get your guy, whoever that is. Just go get your guy. I think, again, we're going to see wide receiver go. They're going to draft a guard eventually. Unfortunately, the best 2 guards in this draft were gone by pick 17, which kind of was anticipated, right? They're going to go wide receiver. I still expect them to add a linebacker along the way too, and they seem to draft a safety every other year. Like there's still plenty of places that they could go. And you're going to see a smattering of a lot of things, but they're going to go corner again, and we'll see what happens. I don't think we'll see corner in the second round. I think we'll probably see corner later. But, if in a perfect world, I think they probably end up going linebacker in the second. If I had to guess, just a guess, man, just a guess.
Yeah, and if you guys are torn between a few linebackers, just look at the two and see which one is the more athletically gifted freak.
That's
and
it.
Then that's the one Bean's going with.
That's it. Yep, that's right. All right, so thank very much, #Nation. Hey, go Bills, man. The Bills added. Boy, is he gonna his feathers are gonna be so ruffled about this. He's like, oh, they got the wrong Florida team. They drafted the wrong player. Florida team. Can't wait.
Yeah, him and Mikey both loved Booth. So yeah, they probably aren't too happy right now.
Never draft a player from Clemson to play in the 716. Never. That's my mantra. All right, guys, thanks again. Talk to you soon. Again, Patreon members, I've added the link over on our Patreon page. You can join us on this call, and we'll talk to you all soon. Otherwise, have a great night. Talk to you soon. See you tomorrow.